So, the Ukrainian armed forces have begun fighting to take over the first positions of the enemy's main defense line in the Tokmak-Melitopol direction. The advance units of the AFU have already managed, at least in one section, to penetrate to a depth of up to 1 kilometer into the first position of the enemy's main line of defense. Let's try to understand how the enemy can act in this situation, and what his reaction to the recent events may be. The first thing that catches the eye is the rather nervous reaction of the enemy command. That in turn resulted in an attempt to pull to the Novoprokopivka area, as well as to the flanks of this area, the maximum possible number of more or less combat-ready forces and means, which are still at the disposal of the Russian command in this direction. After the liberation of the village of Robotino by the advanced units of the AFU, a gap was created in the enemy's combat order in the direction of the village of Kopany. Because after liberating the village, the AFU overcame the local enemy fortifications, which were just located between it and the village of Kopany. Having found themselves south of them, they got the opportunity to turn their right flank in the western direction and start an attack on the village of Kopany. Precisely because of these circumstances, the enemy began to move their battalions from Vasilivka direction to the area of Kopany village. And now hastily, with their help, is trying to organize the defense between this village and already liberated Robotino. And even this is not the main threat for the enemy now. The most unpleasant things for him are happening somewhat to the east, between Novoprokopivka and Verbov, where by coincidence, not only the first positions of the enemy's main defense line turned out, but also the main advance of the AFU advanced units in the general southern direction is taking place, which the enemy obviously cannot stop yet. The losses of the Russian forces in this direction are very significant, and they are forced to urgently transfer reinforcements from other places, while acting quite chaotically. The occupants have also increased the number of airstrikes, as artillery means are not enough to stop the advance of the AFU. The enemy is faced with the problem, how and where best to reinforce its main line of defense. This is mainly due to the fact that Ukrainian troops are constantly expanding their territory by wedging in, and it is difficult for the enemy to decide how best to defend against this expansion. Forces and means at the enemy, in order to simply stop the advance of the AFU towards Tokmak, not so much. I think the main question now is another, how he will use them. And whether the Russian command will find anything substantial to hold the main defense line in the near future. For the crackling in the Novoprokopivka and Verbov area can already be heard quite clearly in Tokmak, which is less than 30 kilometers away. Meanwhile, the Russian Ministry of Attack has cancelled the West 23 exercise. The exercise in 2021 was the largest since the Soviet era. However, it has now become clear even to the Russian leadership that they were held mainly for show, and no practical effect was expected from them. In addition, the Russian armed forces have too few troops not involved in Ukraine to conduct an exercise of this scale. And this is good news.